Hey, everyone, I'm Michael Donnenberg. I'm an infectious disease physician. I'm currently practicing, mostly an administrator in the School of Medicine. And with Daniel's really wonderful introduction there, my job is to tell you that although we think of the catastrophic effects of climate change, we think about the huge tropical cyclones that have landed in the U.S. and the Caribbean. We think of the major wildfires. We think of sea level rise already happening and inevitably going to get worse. Mass migration. All these things are happening and are going to get worse, but maybe, what I'd like to tell you is that, let's put down the button, huh? Okay. That climate damage is having adverse effects on human health right now. It's making us sicker, and it's killing people right now. And in fact, the World Health Organization and the editors of about 200 biomedical journals have both recently said that climate damage, human-caused climate damage, is the single greatest threat to human health. And yeah, that comes in the form of the devastating effects on populations on a whole due to things like the wildfires and major climate disasters, droughts and migrations, the inability of people under those circumstances to get routine health care. But they're really affecting everyone around the globe, including us. So I'm going to talk about these various ways that climate damage are hurting us right now: direct heat-related illness, cardiopulmonary disorders, pregnancy outcomes, infectious diseases, and mental health. So, in the last decade or two, extreme heat has killed, on average, about 600 people a year in the United States. That's heat stroke, people collapsing because they can't regulate their body temperature in the midst of huge heat waves that are unexpectedly hitting various areas of the U.S. And in fact, among those over 65, these deaths have increased 50% in just the last 20 years. And there are huge inequities, both in the U.S. and internationally, with regard to the way vulnerable people are disproportionately affected by these heat waves and put at much higher risk. For example, children and the elderly are at much higher risk of serious heat-related illness. Poverty and isolation have dual effects because if you're poor, you may choose not to or be totally unable to use air conditioning, but you're also likely to reside in urban areas that are heat islands where there's a little tree canopy and where the temperature can be 2 or more degrees hotter than just the neighborhood next door that's covered in trees. Men and pregnant women are more vulnerable. People who work outdoors, especially agricultural workers, are not properly protected, and they are at very high risk, and of course those aren't high-paying jobs. People with underlying diseases, many of which affect poorer communities more than wealthier communities, are at increased risk, and they're more likely to take medications that, again, increase their risk. And all of this is in addition to the sort of indirect consequences of rising temperatures in causing drought in areas that are getting less water, and also flooding, reducing agricultural yields, leading to malnutrition and outright starvation. And this is happening all over the world, including locally. So these data just show visits in the emergency room, the percentage of visits that are due to heat-related complaints as compared to the temperature, the heat index of the day. And they come from Jeremy Hoffman in the Museum of Science Museum in Virginia. And what they show is that those visits are much more frequent during the hottest days, but what's not shown on the graph is that the number of those days has been increasing as our climate is changing. Cardiopulmonary disorders are probably the leading cause of death and increased morbidity due to climate. So particulate matter, especially of the 2.5 micron variety, is associated with a staggering 8 million excess deaths globally. These are particles that are the direct result of burning fossil fuels. So burning fossil fuels is putting CO2 into the atmosphere, of course, and the methane that comes from extracting those fuels is a potent greenhouse gas, and that's causing higher temperatures. But the actual combustion leads to these carbon micro particles that we breathe. And they're so small that they go right through our alveoli and into our circulation. And they're highly inflammatory. So they cause a lot of lung inflammation, exacerbating chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and asthma. But they also cause blood vessel inflammation, leading to strokes and heart attacks. And it's easy to show epidemiologically that the rate of heart attacks, strokes, and COPD exacerbations is directly related to local pollution of the 2.5 PM variety. So every time we're burning the fossil fuels, we're doing a dual harm to human health. And of course, the massive wildfires that we're seeing, not just in California, but now Colorado, and even in the southeast, in Australia. Oh my God, the amount of acreage burned in Australia in 2019 is just unimaginable. Those wildfires are also contributing to increased particulate pollution. People who have asthma get another double dose because the ragweed season is now longer and more spread across the U.S. than it ever was before. And also there's more ground level ozone on hot days, and that is highly inflammatory and exacerbates asthma. And it's due to products of organic compounds and nitrogen oxides as a byproduct of burning methane, combining with the heat and UV radiation, and that produces more ozone at the ground level. Ozone's great in the atmosphere, it blocks UV radiation, but down here on the surface level it causes increased lung inflammation. Again, this is not a phenomenon that is equally distributed in populations. This shows asthma inpatient hospitalization rates by area right here in Virginia, and you can see that Richmond is a hot spot for it due to our urban population with a large number of people who are at increased risk. These same factors also have an adverse effect on pregnancy outcomes. So premature birth and low birth weight, which are themselves associated with infant mortality, are correlated to ozone exposure and also to PM 2.5. And there's also an increased rate of early childbirth during heat waves. And of course, once again, the risk is higher in people who have asthma, and it's higher in African Americans, probably due to the higher associated disparities. In my own field, there are many infectious diseases that are becoming more common in the face of rising temperatures. Some diseases that are transmitted by insect vectors are increasing worldwide and locally. For example, malaria distribution has increased, and here in the U.S., the Aedes albopictus and Aegypti mosquitoes that spread dengue, Zika, and chikungunya have increased as temperatures have gotten warmer, and you can see the warmest parts of the U.S. are most at risk. And even tick-borne diseases like Lyme have increased in incidence because more ticks survive the warmer winters, and you can get tick bites year-round now, where it used to be only a spring, summer, fall problem. As the water temperatures rise, organisms that live in the water but only really thrive during warm water time have been increasing, and their diseases have been increasing. And I'm talking about Vibrio species like cholera on a global scale. And here in the Chesapeake Bay region, there's an organism called Vibrio vulnificus that causes horrible necrotizing fasciitis. And the incidence of that and other Vibrio infections has been rising in the U.S. with warmer water temperatures. And there are also toxic algal blooms that we see with increasing frequency that have neurological consequences. And finally, during periods of flooding, there's always water contamination, and so diarrheal disease also increases. So the impact of all of this is inexorably linked with our mental health as well, because physical health always is, but also because some of these events have emotional trauma that's longer lasting. So survivors of catastrophic hurricanes and wildfires are left with scars and post-traumatic stress conditions. The incidence of depression and anxiety rises as economic and health concerns grow. And even in warmer temperatures, there's even more homicides, there are more suicides, there are more traffic accidents. People behave differently when it's hot. And you can even see that in Twitter. There are more negative tweets on anomalous warm days than on cool days. So our whole mood gets affected and our behavior changes and we act differently. And again, once again, there's an intersection with health disparities because all of these events are more likely to be suffered by more vulnerable populations. So climate damage is here now. It's already affecting us, but it's affecting our health as well. It is a major driver of physical and mental health right here and now, and we must do everything we can do to mitigate that damage.